Good evening. This is Elaine Hensley, and I'd like to present a video for you on the psychology of managing in a virtual setting. So the point of this video is to demonstrate to you that managing a virtual workspace is more than working in different geographical locations and the technology used in that work environment. So I want to explore a little bit more about the feelings and the emotions involved, some psycho-emotional problems that arise from working in a virtual environment, and then how we define it, and maybe offer some options on what we can do about it. So to the end, managing a home work environment sounds like a dream come true. We have the technology, the internet capability, um, the technology has its own problems. So you have to have a little bit of tech support knowledge in the hardware and the software application and internet connectivity for those employees who have a hard time with those things. And then also you have to manage the employee a little bit with time management, the application use, and then how they're multitasking throughout the day. But we're going to focus on the biopsychosocial effects on virtual management. So for psycho-emotional effects, we're talking about tech addiction, techno stress, and psycho-emotional problems that may come about. Also, musculoskeletal issues that sometimes occur by the use of repetitive movement and posture, sitting in front of a computer all day, that kind of thing. So we're going to talk about those things. To begin with, we'll discuss from a Christian worldview. So we want to always make sure that we're keeping our eyes on Christ, and we put Him in everything that we do. So we're not just Christian when we're at church or in our quiet time reading the Bible. We're Christian 24/7, and that means at work, in front of a computer, in front of a platform, on stage, wherever we're talking to people and presenting our information. So we want to keep our eyes on Christ. And professionally speaking, we want to help our employees and have some compassion for the problems that they have and the challenges they have in a virtual working space. And we also want to make sure that we are not deceived by the use of technology and some of the things that people do um, to take advantage, using technology to take advantage of others. So that includes cybersecurity and false information. When we're talking about virtual support, there are basically two management styles. There's management that offers really no support. So the people that are working and their manager really isn't connected to them, have high work pressure. They work irregular hours because of lack of communication, and maybe feeling obligated to work more hours because they're working at home, and they have excessive job demands because the job workload isn't clearly defined. But on the other hand, when people have organizational support, they have high levels of engagement, communication, they have flexible but regular hours, and they're able to achieve their work goals pretty easily. When we're talking about managing virtual employees, one of the main concerns and issues is time management. So office hours and being able to take a break for a minute and to answer the door if the doorbell rings, to receive packages, to calm down the dog, to do whatever happens when you're working from home. So have to allow for time management in that aspect, just like you would allow for that if they were in the office and got up to go to the restroom or to make a cup of coffee or anything else. And then we want to look at problematic and compulsive internet use. So a lot of times people are addicted to, they want to check their email, they want to check their social media accounts, they want to check the news to find out what's changed and what's updated. It's like watching the clouds change shape as they pass over the sky. So we want to make sure that internet use is down to a minimum, and they're focusing on their work duties. And also, we want to make sure that they have a reasonable workload that they can achieve daily. There will be some times when, the workload is less or heavy, but most of the time it should be at a reasonable amount so they can feel like they've successfully achieved their goals for the day, and also to avoid burnout. And in a positive work management environment, again, we're talking about employees that feel autonomous, they feel competent, and they have communication skills that they can easily access other employees when they need to. And they get training and virtual support when they need it. So the one of the positive side effects of virtual work is called eustress. And eustress is regarding to technology, and it's a positive aspect. So, for example, during COVID-19, people had to pack up the office and take it home and put it together and then start working all over again. And there are some people that thrived in that type of environment. And when you ask their managers, the managers didn't even know they had any tech skills or they were tech savvy at all. And the people were um, just loving that environment, and they took off and they became leaders in their departments because of it. And then also there were also some employees who became more productive in a virtual environment because they didn't have the distractions from the office, and they didn't feel like, people were always looking over their shoulder. So those types of positive stresses due to technology is called eustress. And I thought that was interesting, so I put it in there just so you know. And from a Christian worldview, again, we found that um, religiosity is negatively linked to feelings about stress disorders. So, shedding light on technostress, how technostress is understood by a Christian. And from a biblical point of view, we want to refer to scripture, of course, and prayer as a form of mindfulness, dealing with some of these stresses that come about because you're on a computer, because there's no one else in the office except you in a virtual environment, and the feelings of isolation and other things that can happen. So that can cause a little bit of stress. And working on a computer all day with technology all day can add to the stress you already feel, and that's called techno stress. So we want to keep a Christian perspective in mind during these stresses, and be anxious for nothing. The Bible says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything be in prayer and supplication and with thanksgiving, and make our requests known to God. So we want to keep that in mind. Now, musculoskeletal issues also arise from working on computer, working in a virtual environment all day, every day. So when we're talking about working on a computer, people have carpal tunnel. So I'm sure you're all familiar with that, where you're typing all day using the mouse, and the muscles in your hands and fingers tighten up. The muscles in your arms tighten up. Things become swollen and inflamed. Your fingers get stiff. You have pain shooting down your wrist, and that can be easily relieved with heat massage. Also, there's a thing about blinking. So when you're staring at a computer for many hours at a time, the blink rate tends to slow down because you're focusing on what the screen in front of you is doing and what it's saying. So the blink rate tends to slow down, which can cause a problem with dry eyes, visual problems, and even different brain activity problems. And so there are applications for that will make the words blurry or kind of appear to shake the screen a little bit, so that you'll have to blink a little bit more frequently. So that is something to consider if you're going to work on a computer, or if you have especially employees with already weakened or bad vision. And then, like I said, for the rest of it, you have a little bit of coping skills down there for your consideration. When we speak of using technology for, a third to half of your day, at work, we're talking about maybe some tech addiction, where you feel more comfortable with a screen of some sort in front of your face than you do being exposed to the environment or being in front of other people. So that's called tech addiction, and just like every other addiction, it has symptoms and it has side effects for when you close down the computer, when you turn the phone off, then people get side effects. So tech addiction can be considered a self-control issue and can negatively impact job performance. So we want to be mindful of that. People who are on the phone, on the computer, watching TV, listening to the radio, there's something always playing. Even when they're sleeping, they might have the TV on or their phone on playing something. So that can be a problem. And the symptoms are below. We've already discussed a lot of those, so I'm not going to go over that again. And then we have also techno stress that I briefly mentioned earlier, and it was coined in the 80s. And it was just stress due to being and working with technology all day. And just like in the 80s, when computers were hit the market, everybody had to have a computer in their house. When televisions became flat screen, everybody had to have a flat screen. When the internet came out, everybody had to have an external modem. And so the technology has just been exploding ever since. And right now, with the invention of AI and robotics and spaceships going up and down from the earth, then that technology, that ramp of a fast-paced technological change is happening and we saw that during COVID-19, where more applications were being launched to accommodate the people now working from home. So all this technology is causing stress due to the technology. So you can see the symptoms there for that. And again, from a Christian worldview, be anxious for nothing. That is it's repetitive in this. I'm sorry for that, but it cannot be said enough. Last year, when I was struggling in my own position, I had to completely surrender to God. I had to surrender my thoughts and my fears and let Him handle it. Part of being anxious for nothing, it's easy to say to turn it over to God, but then you have to let it go. And you have to know that God's already handling it before you even ask for it, because He knows what we need. So part of that is giving it to Him, and then part B of that is letting Him handle it, and then stop thinking about it and stop worrying about it and just let Him handle it, and then just trust in Him. Chuck Missler once said, God finds a way every day to ask us if we trust Him. So I would just encourage you to do that. And I apologize for the repetition in that phrase, in that quotation. And then gaps in the literature would be that there are not really a lot of Christian focused therapies out there. There's mindfulness therapies that psychologists promote within cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's not from a Christian point of view. Mindfulness is rooted in Buddhism, and we want to focus on Christian concepts. And we can focus on, without even mentioning God, we can focus on the commandments of Jesus and the concepts that Jesus taught us of how to live and how to work with one another and how to interact and have relationships with one another. So if we focus on those concepts and those teachings, then we are still using Christian point of view without having to mention God, which could get us in trouble. But just focusing on the teachings, like I said, shouldn't get us in trouble with those. And the other gap in the literature is, like I said before, the lack of biomarkers. It's difficult to quickly assess if somebody is having a techno-stress anxiety attack, So you might see increased heart rate or fidgeting or increased blood pressure, but if you're not measuring their blood pressure, you really wouldn't know. So that needs to be a little bit clearly defined. The therapies for it need to be more clearly defined. And we need more longevity studies, because most of these studies were done during the COVID era and after, but they're not done from the COVID area to now. So more studies can be done in that. The purpose of this study is to further the discussion on techno-stress and tech addiction, and with a Christian mindset, and encourage the forward thinking of the framework to define, treat, and promote healthy work habits and preventing some of these problems we've been talking about today. And then the references are listed below for you. I did have more references than required because techno stress and tech addiction is part of my dissertation. So I've been looking at this and researching this for a while now, and but I didn't necessarily approach it from a virtual setting like I am in this class. So this has been very helpful. And then some more references are listed here if you'd like to get into looking at Christian mindfulness as opposed to regular mindfulness. And the biomarkers research article is there by Mishra. So techno stress and tech addiction are found in all platforms across society. So this is a problem. Maybe you haven't heard of it before, or maybe people are not talking about it that much right now. But this is going, I believe, with the explosion of technology we're seeing now, I believe this is going to become a larger issue. So I think as researchers and Christians, we should get together and define it thoroughly and figure out what we're going to do about it before and incorporate the Christian therapies for it before it gets too out of hand with the pagan therapies. So that's all I had to say today, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I look forward to your feedback. Thank you very much.